Hey, Andrew, are you there?
Yep.
Hi. Just sent you a couple of messages in the chat, so you're probably not
Sorry.
looking at it. It's okay.
Just rocking this thing.
Before everybody comes in, I just want to clarify, I don't have to be recording this to be having a successful live streaming, do I?
No, I think it just goes directly onto YouTube.
Okay.
As far as I know, anyways.
Yeah, because I haven't done it where we haven't been recording, but we're live streaming. I don't think I've done one of those before, so I just want to make sure that's okay.
Right.
And my other question is, I need you to pass host back to me because I'm going to be bowing out and giving host to Tanya.
Of course. I'm just give me
When you're
half a
done.
sec.
Oh, yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Almost done. I'm almost done.
Okay,
I
thanks.
swear. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
And do you want me to make you co-host, or are you okay?
I don't know if it matters, to be honest. Like I just,
Yeah.
when it's done, like I can kill the stream on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not a big deal.
Okay, I'll just give Tanya host then. Thank you.
Oh, it's awesome. I think this is working. It's hard to tell. What's the name of this meeting?
It is the workshop. It's an Off-Site Levies workshop.
No, that's not hitting the YouTube page then. Why not? Oh, I'll figure it out.
Okay. You might need host then a little bit longer, do you think?
No, I should be fine. It's all on the, just editing the city webpage.
Okay. Tanya, are you there yet? Tanya, let me know when you're there.
It helps when you refresh the page on your browser.
What do I
Yep.
need to?
No. It was my, it's all good. Yeah.
Tanya, are you there yet?
I am here.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna be letting people in right away. Natalie's in the waiting room.
Okay.
So I'll get her in and I'll keep letting people in, and you have your participant screen open.
Yes, and I will. Do you want me to let people in or after, or do you keep track of that, or?
No, I will be I'll let people in. I'll pass host to you. Then I won't be able to see it anymore.
Okay.
So it'll be up to you.
Okay, side by side speaker. Is that what I want? Or the gallery?
Oh,
When you're saying the participant screen?
no, at the bottom, there's a participants button.
Yeah, I just see the three.
Yeah.
That's it.
The three of us, right?
Yep.
Because I haven't given you host yet. That's why you just see who's in the room. You don't see the waiting room.
Okay.
I'm going to give you co-host for now, and then you can see what I'm doing. And then I'll give you host when I bow out.
Okay. And do you want me to start my video or just leave it on this page?
Do you need to have a video going?
No.
Yeah, that's up to you if you want to record, but you'll have to let everybody know.
No, I don't mean that. I mean like turn my video on so people can see me, or do we just want this screen to be shown for now?
Well, that'll pop off after Andrew. Once it starts, Andrew will get that screen off, and then everybody's faces will start showing until somebody's sharing a screen or whatever, then everybody's minimized.
Perfect. I'm going to start my video then.
Okay, and I'm going to let everybody in. There's 3 in there now. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Don't be so quiet.
Well, I'm nervous. I don't know what's wrong with everyone else. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not nervous.
No.
I watched the presentation you did to the development community, and there was nothing but flattering things said about you, Tanya. So, just waiting for Wes and Sheena. They have a couple minutes. All right. Ken, how was your meeting this morning?
I had 2 meetings this morning. So unfortunately, my first meeting with the Wastewater Commission went a little late, and I wasn't able to hook up into the task force meeting until later on. So you're going to have to ask Jackie, but certainly the short time that I was on, it was looked like it was energetic, and I'm sad kind of that I missed it.
Yeah. What about wastewater?
Well, that's in confidence.
Yeah. Did you move the needle a bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. The more information will be coming out next week.
Awesome.
Is this a public meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it says the meeting will be live streamed via YouTube.
Fun.
That's why I went and combed my hair.
Give Sheeta 1 more minute, and Wes. Actually, Wes was tentative when he accepted this. Maybe that's why he's not here. And Sheena did accept it. So, all right, it's 1 o'clock. Let's start. You can start the live stream, I guess.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today for this council workshop on the Off-Site Levy bylaw update for 2021. Today's session is being live streamed. My name is Tanya Hines, and I'm the supervisor of long-term engineering at the city. I'm responsible for completing the update to the Off-Site Levy bylaw. And I just want to take a quick second to introduce some of the other engineering staff in the room. So we have Regan Lefebvre. He's our new manager of asset management and infrastructure planning. And we have Donnie George.
Right.
She's our director of engineering. So for today's workshop, we're going to spend quite a bit of time discussing the functionality of our Off-Site Levy model and 2 significant changes that have been introduced and how they impact rate calculations. We're going to discuss developer feedback on the changes and discuss how that impacted the update. We'll then move on to changes and projects that impacted the 2021 update, some of our plans for 2021, and then we're going to close the workshop with an additional question and answer period. But after each new concept, there will be an opportunity to discuss it. And so you don't need to save your questions till the end. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. This is meant to be informative. So we'll get started. I'm just going to share my screen. Going to try. Oh, there we go. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So you just do my main screen. Okay. So first off, why do we even have offsite levies? So the MGA allows a council to impose the payment of an offsite levy in respect of land that is to be developed or subdivided. This allows municipalities through a bylaw to collect offsite levies and reimburse front-ending parties for the capital costs of new or expanded facilities that accommodate growth. St. Albert adopted its offsite levy bylaw after the 2007 annexation for a number of reasons. So the existing municipal infrastructure was reviewed at that time, and it was revealed that there wasn't enough capacity in the existing systems to support growth in the annexed lands, and the base level infrastructure needed to be expanded. So when the cost of that required infrastructure was assessed, the city concluded that, I just gotta let him West, sorry. Okay, when the cost of that required infrastructure was assessed, excuse me, the city concluded the costs were too high for either the city or landowners and developers to handle alone. So All parties agreed that constructing the infrastructure was a shared responsibility, so they worked together to develop an offsite levy program. St. Albert's offsite levy program has particular benefiting lands and specific growth projects for roadways, water, sanitary, and storm. The city and the landowners and developers worked together to determine how the costs of the required infrastructure could be shared on an equitable basis. They agreed that in order to have all beneficiaries of development participate in the cost of providing the infrastructure, a citywide approach was required. So after extensive consultation and negotiations, it was agreed that the imposition of an offsite levy was an appropriate vehicle to ensure the widespread and equitable participation in the payment of costs providing the new infrastructure. In 2013, the Offsite Levy bylaw underwent an extensive update, and other excess capacity projects, as requested by developers, were also added to the bylaw. And the original Offsite Levy bylaw was repealed, and this is the current Offsite Levy bylaw we have today, which is bylaw 30/2013. There are a few basic principles that guide the collection of offsite levies. So first, a council has to pass a bylaw for collecting offsite levies. The levies currently included in the city's offsite levy bylaw are collected for offsite levy sanitary, stormwater, water, and transportation projects. The collected levies are used to pay for all or part of the capital costs of offsite levy facilities or the land required for any of these projects. When we're establishing offsite levy rates, we use stakeholder consultation and long-term planning documents such as the city's utility and transportation master plans to help determine offsite levy projects and costs. Offsite levies are allocated based on the principle of benefiting parties, and rates are determined on a proportionate share of each project's cost. There are a number of factors which will impact offsite levy rates. These include construction and land costs, the amount of net developable area available, timing of development, interest rates, and the number of front-ended projects being considered. And finally, the number of projects needed to support growth and development. Under the city's offsite levy bylaw, the offsite levy projects and rates must be reviewed no less than every third year. However, the offsite levy model and rates are updated annually in order to prepare the offsite levy annual report for council. This annual report details what infrastructure has been constructed, the cost of that construction, estimated construction costs for the infrastructure that still has to be built, front-ending party payments, the amounts of offsite levies collected, and the amounts of any offsite levy reserves. We last updated the bylaw in March of 2020, and on March 15th, we'll be bringing first reading of the proposed offsite levy bylaw to council. The city's offsite levy bylaw states that all undeveloped lands are subject to offsite levy rates, regardless of whether it's to be developed for commercial, industrial, institutional, community, or residential uses. During the bylaw's development, it was decided that a flat rate for intensity would be applied to all developable lands, with the exception of lands to be dedicated for arterial roads, environmental reserve, and municipal reserve. And at the request of the development community, the city also removed the lands to be dedicated as stormwater PULs. When project costs are first established, the city relies on the estimates provided in the UMP and TMP. Over time, as new or more detailed project information is obtained, those costs get further refined. The cost calculation always includes 15% for contingency and another 15% for engineering, and it estimates the land cost to be about $300,000 per hectare. The city is committed to completing a review of project estimates in 2021 because we want to ensure that we have the best available information included in the model. So some of the highlights of the 2021 update are that the new rates provide an update for the realized construction costs of 2020. New rates include some updated project cost estimates based on pre-design and some design work. We anticipate that reserve balance this year will earn about an interest at about 1.22%, and that's based on our City of St. Albert short-term average rate of return. This is lower than an average year, but I think that's basically attributable to the global pandemic. And reserve shortfalls will be charged an interest rate of about 2.3%, and that's based on the loans to local authorities 20-year debenture rate. So we're now going to discuss some of the significant changes being included in this year's update. So for 2021, the update was prepared using an updated version of the Corvus Offsite Levy model. And as you all know, the city submitted an annexation application to the province. And so as part of that annexation analysis, a newer version of the Offsite Levy model was provided to the city. The city decided to move to the new model for a few reasons. Firstly, it doesn't appear that the annexation will be disputed. So if the annexation is approved, this model can be used to easily incorporate any new lands and new projects within the new city boundary. And secondly, it incorporates a development timeframe of 25 years, which is more in line with what other municipalities use. Our current model and original model, it was based on a 35-year development timeframe. What the new model will no longer assume is that all infrastructure will be built immediately, all lands will be developed immediately, and all of the required offsite levy rates or offsite levies will be collected immediately. It introduces the concept of staging and a staging cost adjustment, and we're going to talk about those quite a bit next. So St. Albert's offsite levy model contains 42 benefiting basins. There is no change to this aspect of the model. However, Area 11 was divided into 3 reference areas to address some changes in servicing plans for that area. And we were able to use 2 unused reference areas that were in the existing model to accommodate that. So Area 11, if you just look at the little map, is just over in this area where it's 41 and 21. That's where it was all, that was all Area 11 originally. So when we calculate remaining net developable area, the model only considers lands that have yet to be developed within the city boundary and haven't previously paid any offsite levies. So the remaining net development area is reflective of what is in the new model and may have some slight variations from past values just due to some updated inputs. And you may also notice that values don't always equal 100. So that's just attributable to rounding and formulas contained in the offsite levy model. So when we first updated the model this year, we used data from the annexation analysis, and that was included in the model. So it was estimated that of the remaining net developable lands, which was about 927.6 hectares, just over 821 hectares would be developed within 25 years, and the remaining 106 hectares would be developed beyond that. So on this map, you can see these purple hatched areas. Those were the areas they identified as probably not going to be developed until after that time frame. 25 years. So what we heard back from the development community on this was that a question on fairness was raised. So the city was asked to consider why some developers should no longer have to contribute to a project just because they now weren't considered expected to develop until after 25 years. So this was seen as inequitable, as development had been proceeding with the expectation that all of the developable lands within the city's existing boundary would be contributing to a variety of the projects in the model. The question on assumptions was raised, as the assumptions used in determining this proposed development timeframe was used to support an annexation analysis, and the information was not public information. Was it fair to change the assumption in the model, which has always been that all of the lands within the development area would be developed within 35 years, and all of the projects would be needed sometime during that time to support development? And some developers described the changing net developable area, as well as some significant cost increases to their projects that was going to be crippling to development. So this is how we responded. So we reconsidered our initial plan. The offsite levy bylaw was originally developed based on the idea that it would take 35 years to develop all of the lands contained within the current boundary. And since the bylaw has been in effect for more than 10 years, it would be acceptable to continue that assumption. So if one considers that the offsite levy bylaw has been in effect for over 10 years, it would be reasonable to assume that by including all of the remaining developable lands within the 25-year time frame, it is anticipated the lands within the current city boundary would be developed approximately 35 years after the city adopted the original model. So in the new offsite levy model, and what is included in the offsite levy bylaw update, which will be presented to council, all lands within the current boundary will be included to be developed by 2045, which is within 25 years of 2021. And lands will stay allocated as such until we receive an updated utility master plan or some other public planning documents that indicate the pace of development for an area within our existing boundary is changing. So do we have any questions about this portion of the update?
This is a lot and confusing, so I'm gonna start with Ken.
Yeah, no, I would just, I mean, so in response to the developers, and then has this been presented back to the developers and was satisfactory with them?
Yes, we're only taking first reading to council on Monday to give the developers extra time, but we actually had a request yesterday if we would consider taking second or third reading as well on Monday. And we said we weren't going to change our recommendations at this point, but as it was on consent, but if people wanted to come to council and present, that's always an option.
So they were happy with the response by administration then?
Yes.
That was from UDI. Yes.
UDI alone. So UDI represented all the developers in this situation?
Well, this was one of the reasons I said that I didn't want to just change it, was just in case there were other interested parties, because we've been communicating that second and third reading wouldn't be brought to council till April 6th. Yeah. So in case other people wanted to come out, because everyone is going to have their own interest and not all the rates are the same. So we wanted to just make sure everybody had an opportunity to speak to council if they chose to.
Yeah, because there are some developers outside of UDI, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So what would their rush be? Why do they want it done sooner?
I think that they were happy that we listened to their concerns, and the rates obviously did drop, and so they, see that as a positive thing.
Yeah. Any more questions on this one? Wes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is basically the map of the city as is. So post annexation, should that happen within this year, what's the implication, if any, to this particular bylaw? Because I'm assuming, I don't know where the contributing basins lie, but do those change, and does that affect the overall price of our offsite levy?
Eventually, and we will cover this a little further in the presentation too, eventually those lands would get incorporated in. There will be additional areas, but there'll also be additional projects that will come with annexation. We don't know all of those answers specifically yet, but there will be additional changes. So you would see more, sort of like how we have these areas, it would expand and there'd be more benefiting areas, and they would move into like when those projects are needed and things like that. So it's hard to predict what would happen with the rates. It will depend on what projects come with that.
Okay, so what's the implication of this staging? Does that up the price or down the price?
It depends on what's happening. So we're gonna talk about that next.
So all right, carry on. I won't ask you more questions. Thanks.
Okay. So does everybody sort of understands that basically what we've done is we've said that any of the lands that were in the original bylaw are back in the lands now for the next 25 years. So we've sort of kept things status quo to how they were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Wes, just so you know, even if the MGB makes a decision, the application for the annexation is supposed to take effect January 1st, 2022.
Okay.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome. Okay, so all remaining net development area is assigned a projected year of development in the offsite levy model. So planning assists in providing this estimate, which is updated annually. So what they'll look at is which approved subdivisions executed development agreements that year, and then they consider what they expect other approved when they expect other approved subdivisions to start construction. They will consider redistricting applications, which may be in process or recently approved. And they'll look at whether an area is part of an approved area structure plan, or if there's a pending ASP application coming forward. And finally, they'll look at the long-term planning growth scenarios to best predict when and where development will occur. So it's recognized that the accuracy of estimation for timing of development deteriorates as the process can take on a bit of a best guess scenario the further into the future you plan. And so this is why it's important that we look at these numbers annually to update them with the best information that we have and with new data as it's obtained. So the city of St. Albert was one of the first municipalities to adopt the Corvus model, and it was based on the 35-year development timeframe because it was felt it would take that amount of time to develop the lands. And this meant that the full cost of developer share of the offsite levy projects were included in the offsite levy rates. And so as other municipalities adopted the Corvus model, most use a 25-year development timeframe, as it is felt that is a more reasonable approach to focus developers' costs today, more so on the infrastructure that benefits development today, and less so on infrastructure that will be built in the future. So we're going to talk about staging. So in addition to considering what lands will be developed and when, staging will also factor in when infrastructure is going to be built. So the current offsite levy rates, so these are the rates that are calculated before staging is applied, assume all of the offsite levy infrastructure projects will be built immediately, all the land's going to be developed immediately, and therefore all of the required levies will be paid to pay for the infrastructure. And we're going to collect that immediately. But however, this is not really reflective of how development actually occurs. So what staging will do is it divides the cost of a project by 25 years, and then it calculates an annual project cost for that project. The model then includes a pro rata amount in the current rates based on the project's planned year of construction. So for example, if we say in the 25-year time frame from 2021 to 2045, project A is planned to be constructed in 2040. So the calculator will include 6 years worth of the annual costs for that project in today's rates. So as the development timeframe extends out further in subsequent years, and the years the project's construction approaches, the amount included in the rates changes and more projects costs are gradually entered into the rates. So in the previous slide, I mentioned project 8 would contain 6 years worth of the project's annual costs. Well, 5 years from now, project A would include 11 years worth of annual costs in the offsite levy rates. So if a project is constructed though, all of the costs are included in the rates regardless of when the land is predicted to be developed. So this means a constructed project should not take longer than 25 years to recover its project costs based on the assumption that all lands contributing to that project are developed within that time frame. So do we have any questions related to the staging of projects?
Ken, and Wes, is your hand up from before? Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, thanks,
Sorry.
Tanya. So just for my benefit, who determines the cost of the project?
So we start with the UMP. So when we get those master documents, they'll tell us what they expect the cost of the project to be. And then as we get into things like pre-design, that will give us an updated cost. And then when we start to get into design, that's when we get much closer to project costs, like defined ones.
So does that rate change over the 20 on using the formula though? So I mean, those costs of the projects change. So you divide it by the 25
Yes.
years.
So every year it would update. And so
yeah.
The good thing about that is kind of that it has a little bit less weightage for as the project gets closer to being built, you would also anticipate that the project cost estimate would get further refined. Right. So you're paying a little less maybe in the first few years to contribute to it, but then as that gets closer to construction, you get better numbers, you get more refined, you get closer to it, and then of course, if the project's built, it goes right into all the costs go in. So then it's a defined cost.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions on this one? Sheena.
Hi, Tanya. So it sounds like it's a 10-year rolling plan, but now it's a 25-year, like we did for the utility rates, we have a 10-year rolling. This was like a 25-year rolling on offsite levies is kind of what I'm seeing. Would that be fair?
I would assume so. I'm not 100% familiar with the utilities part, but I would, yes.
Okay. So the other, I don't know if you're going to get to it later, but because I know we have basically two things that are rolling in if I'm looking at it. It's the number of years that we have coming in for the projects, but also the amount of land that's coming in. So are you going to be getting into that later as you determine which land masses are now being included into the offsite levies?
So right now, all of the land is included, and that was what we talked about the first part.
Right. I guess I'm thinking about the annexation land. Sorry, I'm ahead of you on that one. I'm thinking like when the new land comes into play, not all of it's going to be in the current model, right?
Yeah,
so
we're going to talk about that when we get to risks.
Something to look forward to. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
I'm not going to lie, I thought of you when I prepared that section. Okay. So the offsite levy model contains a staging adjustment. So this adjusts the offsite levy rates based by taking into account inflation, when projects will be constructed, when levies will be collected, and the interest impacts on the reserve accounts. So at times the offsite levy reserves will not be sufficient to fund project construction. So during these times, front ending will be required. When the reserve balance is in a positive position, it earns interest. And when the reserve balance is negative, so if we've done a lot of front ending, then the reserve balance is charged interest. So the staging cost adjustment will determine how, the staging cost adjustment determines how much the rates have to be adjusted to deal with the impacts of staging, so that at the end of 25-year development timeline, the reserve balances are at zero. And sometimes the staging adjustment will result in levies increasing in some categories and decreasing in others. So moving to the 25-year development timeframe may initially cause some rates to fluctuate, but it does give the opportunity to collect all of the project costs within the 25-year timeframe for that project, rather than continuing to spread the cost out over time. So this has been something that the development community has mentioned to me. They feel a bit frustrated because sometimes it's hard to get these completed projects off of the books. Okay, so we do have 4 sources of funding that might contribute to the cost of an offsite levy project. With some projects, if there's an overall benefit to the city which isn't necessarily linked to growth, the city might pay a proportionate share of the project's cost. There's also instances where a project may be built with excess capacity, and the lands benefiting from the excess capacity are located outside of the city boundary. So we're moving forward to construct these projects. It's important to plan for how that share of the project's costs will be collected. So this can be addressed through a few different ways. So you can have an intermunicipal offsite levy bylaw. You can have servicing agreements with adjacent municipalities, or annexation of the lands. So any lands in their proportionate share of a project's costs within that category that are annexed into the city boundary would be reallocated into the next 2 categories. So the first one, the developer share beyond 25 years, will gradually be entered into the current offsite levy rates as time progresses. And then you'll have your offsite levy, which is your current developer share, which is the amounts developers are paying today towards projects, and is the amount contained in the offsite levy rates. Oops, sorry. There we go. Moving to a 25-year development timeframe for calculating levies does increase risk to the city, as the model is underfunded until all lands are developed and project costs are collected. You can mitigate risk by continuing to update the model annually, and by not approving construction of projects that are not within the 25-year development timeframe, unless the offsite levy bylaw is updated to include these project costs within the levy rate calculation. And risk can also be reduced by ensuring agreements are obtained for any excess capacity projects. So do we have any questions we'd like to talk about that?
So will we be updating this annually?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else have questions? Everyone seems very comfortable.
Okay, I think this sort of addresses what Councillor Hughes was asking. I just want to make sure that that's okay.
Sheena?
Yeah, I guess I'm just, what you're trying to figure out is when does the trigger point that those lands come on the board for the next 25 years? Because we have like the plan for when the offsite projects are going to be developed in those 25 years, and that's the 25-year rolling plan. But now we have land in the annexation. It's going to be, some of it's going to be entering into that, where we're going to say now we're expecting those lands to be developed in the next 25 years, like in 5 or 10 years from now or whenever, right? So I'm just trying to figure out what is the trigger for us to say that we expected those lands to be included now in the offsite levy formula.
So as soon as they've come into the city boundary, then we'll have to do some more analysis to decide, to figure out, to ensure that we have all of the projects captured that we need to support that development. Some of them might be just those existing capacities, so the ones that are future development in the existing bylaw, they just get rolled into the rates now. Or there might even be some additional projects to be, and then we would decide who benefits from those projects, who has to pay, and what that distribution looks like. So what you would see is, as soon as there's annexation, whereas we have 42 benefiting areas, it might move up to, 70 areas, depending on how they've divided it up. And then everyone would have a rate that way. And then based on the planning documents, then we would put those amounts in where we think they're going to fall for development. Because as people bring in area structure plans for those areas.
So let's say I'm a developer, I have land, and you say, okay, you're going to benefit from this water reservoir. But I say, I'm not planning to develop it for at least 30 years. So I don't want to be including your offsite levies right now because I don't intend to build. Of course, I can change my mind and sell the property or whatever else off the hat. But I guess, what is the mechanism to handle it if the developers disagree that they actually should or should not be in the next 25-year timeline?
Yes, that would be part of the consultation that will take place when we develop that part of the bylaw. It's no different than when we developed the first one. There's always quite a bit of, it's quite a bit more of a rigorous process rather than like our annual updates. So there will be consultation that will be involved with the property owners and to see what development will look like. And then we'll also rely on our planning documents and things like that.
So when the annexation occurs, let's assume it goes smoothly, just because we might as well at this moment, because I want to be optimistic about something in my life. So let's assume it goes smoothly. So we move from 42 to 70, for example. I'm thinking that next year the offsite levies would be going down substantially. Would that be right or no? Or is it going to be that we have more projects as well, so it's actually going to balance it out?
I would say it might be closer to a balance with maybe some down. I don't want to predict because that often ends badly for me, but
sure.
But that would be my way of thinking. If you brought on more land with no extra projects, there would be more land to share the costs. But there will be some projects that are required to support the new development as well.
Okay.
And you have to remember that some of the project costs also are, you might not see the rates go down. You might see them stay the same in some areas, because you have to remember that those future lands that are benefiting aren't in the current rates now. So the whole project costs would get moved in. So the cost per hectare would stay the same possibly, or be comparable.
Okay, so even after the annexation, we should not expect a dramatic change to our overall rates because of the annexation. I'm thinking that because we have more projects on balance, we have more land with more projects. So we shouldn't expect it to go from 300,000 to 200,000, for example. We should expect it to still be somewhat comparable at this moment. I really should do the numbers, it could change, but right now.
In theory, yes. And you also have to remember too, that with staging now, every year, some of those project costs are going to roll in and some of the project costs will roll out as you get. So it's going to be a very, I would say fluid program, because there's always going to be lots of changing parts.
All right. Okay, we'll give something to do anyway, right? So you won't get bored. Okay, thank you.
If I can add to the timing, Councillor Hughes, you asked, I think currently we are anticipating an update to the UMP based on the annexed land is roughly around 2023 and TMP in 2022. So once those results come forward, we'll have a pretty good idea what projects will go into the model to support those lands. So the earliest we could add those lands with the projects is roughly around 2025 as an update to the offset levy, as we predict today.
Okay, I see no more hands up.
Okay, I'll continue. Okay, so we're going to talk about the projects themselves. So we didn't have any additional sanitary projects added for 2021. So we have 12 active projects right now. Based on detailed design, the estimated project cost for Sanitary Project 8, which is the Phase 2B North Interceptor, that increased by $2.5 million. And other projects saw incremental increases in project costs, and another project cost decreased due to the receipt of an outstanding developer contribution. So these influences, as well as the new calculation offsite levy rates, resulted in various changes. And so if I just point, Project 8 is right here. I think we're all pretty familiar with that one. You just approved the funding for it a few months ago. So currently we have $51.8 million remaining to be collected for the sanitary offsite levies. So of that, 50.2 is within the current 25-year development timeframe. So if you're looking at these reserves, you'll see the developer share beyond 25 years at 1.6 million. And the current rates contain the 50.2. So when you add those up, that's where you get the 51.8. For storm projects, we didn't have any additional storm projects in, and we still have 10 active projects in the offsite levy model. Based on some pre-design report, the estimated project cost for Stormwater Project 5, which is the Northeast Storm Trunk, this increased, and this is just down this side right here, this actually increased by $8.6 million. This was a significant increase to this project. As well, the proposed timing for the construction of portions of the Northwest Storm Trunk, which projects 1 to 4, which are down the west side of the city, resulted in significant decreases to the current offsite levy rates for those projects, as a large portion of the project costs have been allocated to development beyond 25 years. So these changes had a pretty strong impact on the stormwater offsite levy rate this year.
Can I ask a question about that, Tanya?
Sure.
So to go back
Yep.
to the storm project number 5.
Yes.
Is it that, Donnie, this is the one that we really were talking about a lot during the annexation, right?
This was already part of the offsite levy model. Yeah.
Okay. Because we did talk about different possible routes for this pipe through Sturgeon lands. I can't remember which one was cheaper.
Yes,
why did
this
it go up
was
to 8.6 million?
This was originally planned to go east through Sturgeon lands to the Sturgeon River. That was like a line on the map originally when the estimates were prepared, like 10 years ago maybe. But we just recently completed a concept design. So if utilities funded it, so that's why the cost went up. Now we cannot go through the Sturgeon land, so we are taking it along the east border of St. Albert land to go south to the Sturgeon River. So the length of the pipeline drastically increased, along with the recent knowledge of how the geotechnical is working in that corridor there has contributed to the design as well. Design
So why
cost.
can't we go through the Sturgeon lands?
The hydraulics, was they looked at hydraulics, the land ownership, there was a lot more expropriation that we would have to go through to get those pipes through those lands, which increases the cost in that sense. So this was the most cost effective, probable fastest route to get to the land. And obviously Enrich North and the lands in that area, Northeast Quadrant, is looking forward to have this storm outfall built as soon as possible to improve the development in that quadrant there.
Okay.
I'll maybe just chime in a bit. Depth of cover was an issue as well. If you go straight east, there's almost no depth of cover on the pipe itself.
All right. One quick question, then I see Wes had his hand up, and then I saw Sheena. So, what's the timeline on that project?
So currently we have landed with the memorandum of understanding with Landrex, contributing. They started the design on that already. So there's a benefit to that land is, so that project is that they're combining 3 projects together in terms of design. So this storm outfall, plus also a force main, a sanitary force main is also sharing that same alignment, and a lift station. So 3 projects combined is what they have started the design already. We haven't seen the 30% design yet, but we know the kickoff started probably a month ago. And we would expect more refined cost estimates to come forward with those 3 together in the next 3 months or so.
Thanks. Wes and then Sheena.
It just briefly, so this project number 5, and actually the whole system up there, there is no benefiting land of the project outside of the boundary of St. Albert, is it? Like there wouldn't be development over there that would access these pipes, would there?
Yes, so you're saying like as a portion of the project cost being attributed to future development lands?
Well,
outside of the city boundary?
Yeah, I'm wondering if so there is.
Yes, and so all of the full costs of that project, which the estimate went up, I want to say it's 14.3 million, only about 50% or just over that is in the city's offsite levy rate right now.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Sheena.
Thanks. Kathy actually asked all my questions, but following up on Wes's, so with the annexation, then when those lands come on board, would they cover the other 50%, or where is the land?
Yes.
Is it past that?
It will be, no, it's in the boundaries of the annexing land.
Okay. So we're just waiting for that to come on board then. That's really it. Okay, perfect.
Awesome. One last question, Tanya, because we're on storm. I wrote it down. You took out storm PULs?
No, what we took out was the stormwater management facilities, just as a development cost. So what it does is they don't pay a levy on that, but really because it was harder for the developer to get funding for something that's more of a utility, then they're not selling those lands, they're needed to support them. So what they did by taking that out is they kind of artificially increased their offsite levy per hectare because they're saying there's less land to develop, but it's still would have been subject to an offsite levy rate, but we've said, okay, you can take it out because it's difficult to finance for you, but understand with that you increase your per hectare rate just because you've reduced the amount of stormwater pond area. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
All right. So the stormwater, currently we have $40.6 million remaining to be collected for stormwater. And of that, only $22.2 million is within the current 25-year development timeframe. So we didn't have any additional water infrastructure projects added for 2021, and we still have 15 projects in this category. But the new calculation of offsite levy rates has resulted in a significant decrease to the water offsite levy. And this is the only reserve balance where we have a positive balance, and that's sitting at about $14 million. So part of the reason that you saw the decrease in this is due to staging, because even though you have 2 reservoirs in the model, you don't necessarily need 2 reservoirs to come on at the same time. So if you will build some capacity by building one, and then later on you'll build the other. And so this is where how staging can impact those things. So that's where that change came. So currently we have $73.7 million remaining to be collected for the water offsite levy. And of that, 45.7 is within the 25-year development timeframe. So for the transportation update, we didn't have any additional infrastructure projects added for 2021. However, Project 11, which is just over here from Giroux, I call it Giroux Road West, from the western city limits to Ray Gibbon Drive, has project costs reassociated with it, as portions of this road are planned to be upgraded and expanded to service the Range Road 260 area structure plan. And we still have 34 projects that include roadways and intersections in this category. So the reinstatement of project costs for Project 11, a city taking out the $4.5 million debenture for Project 20, which is St. Albert Trail, some increases in costs for completed work for projects under construction, as well as the new calculation for the offsite levy rates, has resulted in a moderate increase to the transportation offsite levy. So currently there's $149.9 million remaining to be collected for transportation offsite levies. Of that, $134 million is within the current 25-year development timeframe. So there has been considerable front ending completed on transportation projects, overall over $130 million worth. So the offsite levies currently their share of that work is included in the rates. So for combined offsite levies for sanitary, storm, and water are different for each area reference, depending on the sanitary and storm basins. We have flat rates for transportation and water. Combined offsite levies for properties in 2020 range from just over $232,000 a hectare to just over $412,000, which was an average of about $314,000 per hectare. And for 2021, what you're seeing is a drop where the range has gone from $210,000 a hectare to almost $325,000 per hectare, which is an average of about $275,500 per hectare. So what that is an average decrease of about 12.25%, and which worked out to be about $38,500 per hectare. So some of our plans for 2021 include we have an offsite levy working group, and we want to get that off the ground and working together to ensure our program is taking into consideration the developer concerns and finding ways to improve the overall program. We're hoping to look at the offsetting policy and determine if there are any updates and improvements that can be implemented to that. And we want to take a close look at the transportation projects themselves to ensure the costs the developers have been recovering are still supported by the group. And we can investigate the option of creating a two-tier system for some roads and intersections if there is interest by the development community. One other thing we've had is we've had a request to add Villeneuve Road as a project. So this leads to a bigger discussion on how we want to address roads identified as connectors under complete streets, because these roads weren't previously identified as offsite levy projects. As well as our utilities department is also beginning to start work on reviewing aspects of their master planning documents. And Regan's going to be a stakeholder in those meetings and reviews.
I see a question from Wes.
Oh,
probably on transportation.
Okay.
Yeah, so explain why and who wants Villeneuve Road into the offsite levy program, only because I live over here and I'm interested. I thought the big arterial is going to change from Villeneuve over to Fowler Way.
It will be. And so those are called crosstown roads, the bigger arterials, but there's also some arterials under complete streets, which are connectors. So we have a few of those in the city that haven't been offsite levy projects before. And that will be a discussion with the development community is how they want to handle those moving forward, because it just, whatever we would decide, it's not a good idea to just put a single project in. It's better to have a standard reason for everything being included, and so that it's consistent and equitable to everybody.
So what's the interest for Villeneuve Road? Is it to upgrade the road? Like it's still only going to be like a 2-lane road, as I understand it. Is that not correct?
Yes, so that's not, you can still have arterial roads that even though they're not 4 lanes, they serve, it's more about function. And so an upgrade would also improve connectivity, things like that. That road itself wouldn't all be offsite leviable. That would be one that would have a city proportionate share as well. Remember, I mentioned that sometimes the city will pay for a project as well, or contribute to a project. That would be an instance where we would have a contributing factor just based on all the people that do use the road from the, it's not all attributable to growth.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But the east end of Villeneuve Road, as it links into Fowler, that alignment hasn't changed at all, right?
No. So but it would be the connection going up to the other part, like where it would connect to Hogan Road to go into Fowler. That's where Villeneuve would be that way, because that's where it's considered a connector.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to...
So currently, there's a project cost for Villeneuve Road, and I think it's exactly as Wes said. It's kind of downgrading it. And anyway, currently, who's paying for that? Is it 100% city right now?
Donnie, do you want to
yeah, if I remember from the project charter, we currently have it a 60-40 split.
Okay.
The 40 being developers abutting towards that Villeneuve Road and 60 being city. We just recently completed an update on the concept study or functional study, and it now is leaning towards a 70-30 split. So that has not been published yet. It's coming, upcoming.
Well, we're broadcasting live, Donnie, so. But okay, so if we go 70-30, then that means the city's paying which
70.
Sorry, we're 30.
70 by city,
70,
by the
we're the
developer.
70, and okay, so making it an offsite leviable project, how does that change?
That just means that only if it became an offsite levy project, 70% of that cost would be paid by the city, and only 30% would be attributable to the offsite levy rates.
Well, the other thing to consider is it could be developer contributions directly from those developers within their development agreements.
Okay, currently we're paying 70%, and if we make it a leviable project, we pay 70%, right?
Yeah, there's no change there. It's just a matter of who's paying the 30%.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. That's where I was confused. All right. I see no more questions on transportation. So your question sign on this slide, is this for just general questions now?
Yeah, so if you have any other questions about offsite levies or the update or anything like that, be happy to try to address them. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if that's okay.
Sure, no, it's fine.
So I can see everyone. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to, oh, stop share. There we go.
I just have a question. I just have a follow-up question, just a curiosity question. When we changed the model from 35 to 25 and we looked at the different areas, any of the existing costs go down in any of the different areas like that were already there, or would that have any factor into it at all? So like, I'm just looking like at area 1, the total is 414,470. Is that the same as 2020, or was there any impact related to the change in the years?
The only reason it changed was when you put in the staging adjustment.
Yeah. Okay.
But the
So
project costs didn't change. They either they were refined basically, and a few of them it was more they went up. We didn't have any project costs. They either stayed the same, or based on new information, they changed. They went up because we had better costs.
Okay.
I would say except project 9 may have gone down, right, from the original estimates that we had.
That's been constructed, so the full costs are in that project. But that's an example where in the past the project was estimated to be much higher, and in the end the rates did go down because the project came in much lower.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking through the area maps and looking at the costs as it was being calculated, and just seeing if there was any difference between 2021 and 2020 based on any of the changes we've done. But you've just said no, it's just basically due to the more accurate project costs. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the fact that you're changing the rate decreases due to the staging element added, right? Yep. Because when I showed on those reserve ones where they were showing some of the development cost is outside of the 25 years, that's where, so next year there'll be an incremental, anything that's now that 1 year, depending on how it is broke down, will move in. Like, so you'll have 1 more years of annual costs going in it. So your rates will move up each year, but then vice versa, you could have something come out.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Ted.
I'm seeing no more hands up. I'm going to pick on you, Ray, because I was leaning on you for offsite levy stuff. Just you happy with what you're seeing today?
No, I've gone over the stuff and I'm happy with it. And the industry, the fees have gone down, and I'm content with how we're dealing with the annexed area. That's the only way to deal with it. You know, it's like when you bring on the annexed land, they're going to have additional costs, but hopefully, you know, those lands are going to pay for those additional costs. So it should all balance out, and we really shouldn't see a big increase unless there's some huge unnecessary or unanticipated facility, like some huge lift station or some huge reservoir that's not anticipated to service those additional lands. But there doesn't appear to be. So yeah, I'm happy.
If you're happy, and I'm happy.
Especially when they're going down.
Tina.
Thanks. So I can see why there's encouragement to try to get this to pass sooner than later, because I know that there's a lot of development that's planned to happen hopefully in the next couple of years in St. Albert. Has there been any feedback at all that from the development community where they don't want to have a second and third reading pass on the 15th?
I've not received any feedback, but vice versa. I haven't heard from everybody that. So I don't want to speak for, just because somebody hasn't reached out to me doesn't mean they aren't planning to speak to council. Okay.
Okay. I'm just curious. I know that time is money, and I know 3-week delay, they may be motivated to wait the extra 3 weeks to have this happen, and that still costs them time is money in development world. So
you can still apply for a development agreement during this time, and we can process them and have them ready. We just don't execute them during this time, and we still review drawings. So nobody's actually constructing for the most part right now anyway, because it's still winter. So then it shouldn't delay anybody's construction if you want to wait to the 6th for second and third reading.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Ray, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I would recommend that we get a hold of CODA and send them a copy, because they're not part of UDI, and you know, we've had some issues with them not being involved in the past. So I would send them to them, and if there's any other slash developers who are kind of out there who aren't really part of UDI.
Yeah, we send the information to all of the landowners that came to the presentation, plus anyone that's been on our lists in the past. So I do know that CODA received the information.
Okay, thank you. Those are
a good call, Ray. Yeah.
Thanks.
I see no more hands up on my screen, and I see no people actually holding their hands up. So yeah, I think we should probably just do first reading on Monday because we've made some commitments in case somebody does want to speak to it on the 6th. This is not a public hearing, is it? No, it's just a bylaw. Okay. This is always a confusing topic for me, and you did a good job, Tanya, so thank you for helping me. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you don't have any additional questions, I guess you're free to go.
Oh no, I appreciate it's really nice having you and Regan and Donnie here to walk us through it. And it's nice that our city manager is an engineer, so he probably puts a stamp of approval on it too. So, and it's nice having a developer on council.
There we go.
Okay, see you guys.
All right.
Yep.